now we're getting into the early 90s now, 90, 91. And he gets a deal with somebody that there's an interview with WCW. At this point in time, now keep in mind, you know who hired him at WCW, correct?
Well, you're going to tell us.
Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty
and
Rhodes.
Meeting Dusty Rhodes for the first time was a bigger thrill to me than meeting Michael Jordan, only because, childhood. I mean, 70s, growing up, you watched wrestling on Saturday night. If you were from Cobb County, I don't care if you were, or, poor or whatever, you watched it. And meeting Dusty was big. I mean, it was unbelievable. And at that time, his brothers, they, ran car dealerships, and our family's owned car dealerships in Marietta since the 60s. So Dusty would come down and buy cars, and I talked to his older brother, Steve, and he was like, "Hey, bro, Dusty Rhodes is coming down here today. You got to be here." I was like, "Hey, you tell me what time, I'm there." And of course, at that point, that's when we first met Dusty, and he became a family friend, a great friend. And knowing what he knew about Marcus at that time, Dusty came up to me, and Dusty always had that talk to him, baby. He had to talk right. Dusty came up behind me and said, "Hey, baby, listen to me, all right? Your boy's special. This boy's going to be good." And I was like, "All right, Dusty, I hope so." At this point, nobody knew, but Dusty knew. Dusty believed in him when no one else did. And of course, hiring him in, and the whole song and dance there, as far as hired him in, but wanted to go back to school. And Dusty really didn't think. He had the look, those pretty teeth, baby. Your boy got the prettiest teeth in the world. I was like, "Dusty, are they prettier than mine?" He said, "Oh, they're way prettier than yours, But Dusty and I cut up a lot. Dusty was a great friend. God rest his soul. Dusty was, man, just a good friend, and lived for the longest time. And we didn't know this, probably 5 miles from the Bagwell family mansion in Marietta. We didn't know that then.
Such a small world. Wow.
Trying to think of that subdivision he lived in. Some township, I think was the name of it. And we found that out, of course, being friends. But Dusty believed, and Dusty believed in the look was where I was going. And he knew, gosh, he's made for TV. This kid is. And then, of course, when Dusty first saw him wrestle, he's like, "Wait a minute. You didn't tell me you could wrestle." And then from there, everything came together. And then, the sky's the limit at that point for Mark. And he took the ball and ran with it.
It's funny. I told our producers when you and I first became friends, I told them about you. And I said, you think that Marc Bagwell is one of the best storytellers of all time, but Jerry Hood gives him a run for his money. And putting these two in the same room and telling stories, good luck in getting one word in there. And I don't even know how you guys get one word in with each other, because you guys are just so good at it. There's something about the Bagwells, and you're genetically inclined to tell stories.
It's when he and I go to lunch together and we set an appointment for 1:00, you have to get on his schedule. I'm a brother. And when we get there at 1:00, we're subject to still be sitting there when they're closing the bar, period. I mean, it is. And then
that's 1 p.m. That's 1 p.m. You're saying
1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you're going to be there maybe till close 2:00 a.m.
12 a.m. the next day. Yeah. And really the stories that we always talk about, that you and I use that cliche, you can't make this up. It all stems back from Big Steve, which, Steve Bagwell.
Your uncle.
That's correct. My uncle.
And Mark's daddy.
Mark's that, and he's the world's champion. He's the storyteller, and he always starts a good long story off with, "You may have heard the story." And at that point, you're fixing to hear a good story. And you probably have heard it again 10,003 times, but you want to hear it again because it's so dramatic. It's a great story. You might have been involved in the story, from the brake lights to the, you name it, to the back in the day when we were carrying sheetrock by hand into houses without scissor bed trucks to drag racing, it didn't matter. He will literally, to this day, and he and I are very close. He's like a dad to me. We can get on the phone, and he'll call me or I'll call him, and it's minimum an hour, minimum. So if I've got a long drive in from the city, if I'm driving to my farm or what have you, 2 hours away, he's good for 2 hours plus. And then usually if he's the one doing the talking, he always says, well, hey, buddy, listen, I've got to go. I'm going to need to let you go. But he's the one telling the stories. You're just a good listener. And like I say, I wouldn't trade our friendship, family, period, the end, by far. He and I, it's unbelievable how close we are.
But that's where also it's so good to have you on here, Jerry. And, first of all, I want to tell you in advance a thank you, because you've been a good friend to myself and like a brother, and, sharing your stories. And we built up our friendship, and, you're really looking out for Mark. And as far as, your kinship with Mark, but if we had Mark all the time with you, I don't know if we can get half these stories in. So one of those things are also, like you said, Mark remembers 90% of it, but sometimes you fill in those details and you guys really work well. But it's also interesting to hear the same stories, but from Jerry's end of it, because you guys have the same stories and sometimes it goes a little differently. I got to ask you that question because I don't know how Mark would feel about it, but I know you have a pretty good idea. Imagine that he did not move to that building and he did not meet Missy Hyatt, and that whole connection never happens. And he, chances are he does not become a professional wrestler as a result. With the family lumber business being sold, never meeting Missy Hyatt, where do you think Mark would have gone? What do you think? Yeah. Would he been a professional masseuse? What do you think? Actor?
That might have been second as far as being a massage therapist, a masseuse. All right. At that point, nobody knew, and we never doubted him just because he was so good with people at networking. It didn't matter. I knew, even if it came to the point to where he knew about lumber or sheetrock or windows and doors. At that point, once everything had closed down with my family, I had gone to another local lumber yard as a salesperson, and I would have taken him in with me. Or we had an uncle also that worked with us, Big Steve's baby brother, the one with the Corvettes and the story that you and I talked about, who owned, golly, back in the day, I would say from 1972 until he passed a few years ago, he owned over 50 Corvettes. And what was the guy's name? It was Tom Jumper Chevrolet here in Sandy Springs, Georgia, which is a suburb right outside of Atlanta. Alan Wolf was the salesperson. And when he saw Larry Bagwell coming, AKA Porky, when he saw Porky coming, he knew immediately right there, which all the brothers, Chick, Porky, Big Steve, they all bought cars from him. So they knew it was time. Hey, it's Corvette time. He'd drive one for a year or two, he'd trade it, or he'd go buy another one. So he had two. It didn't matter. And that was, wow, that's a lot of Corvettes, but true story. I mean, that's big.
Did it rub off on you, Jerry? I never asked you. Did you ever own one of those muscle cars?
Whew, man, never a muscle car. I've always been, as you know, and I got this from Big Steve, I've always loved a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, the old Wagoneers, the Cherokee Chiefs,
with the wood,
the Grand
paneling.
Cherokees.
Yeah.
I've got a Grand Cherokee now, as you know. That thing will do whatever you tell it to do. It doesn't matter. It's great. But no muscle cars. What I want to do, and I would like to do it with the help of Mark, I would love to buy his dad an old muscle car Plymouth Barracuda, street ready, Hemi motor. But, I mean, we've talked about that for years and years and years. And, but no muscle car for me. People always say, man, you're really conservative. And I wasn't early on, but once I hit 30, about 10 years ago, I guess, if you will,
yeah.
that was, I started saving money big. It didn't matter. I just never really spent it on cars. I was more, hey, can we go buy 500 acres of, let's build a farm, let's deer hunt, let's buy some houses or something like that. I mean, but and being from a car family, owning the dealerships in the city. One good reason I forgot about this is I never really had to buy many cars. I just go pick one out off the lot, or just go to Steve, his brother, and say, "Hey, I need a Camaro SS for a couple weeks. What color you want? Orange? Done deal, bro. Hey, done. Corvette, didn't matter. Mustang GT convertible. I know you don't like that Mustang, but
I know I have
no, it
nothing
didn't matter.
against a Mustang. I just never drove one. That's all.
Yeah, you're a big Chevy fan, and we were big Chevy fans for a while. Ford as well. It didn't matter. Whatever was bringing the dollars in, that was it. But so I basically I was just picking cars out. Well, of course that was early on, but then once I accidentally got married and lost my kitchen passes for going and picking out cars for 2 or 3 weeks of traveling the road and everything, having kids, bro, I was buying minivans and Ford Expeditions and oh wow, that was the Camaros and the Corvettes and the Mustangs, and those days were gone. But now it's back to let's drive muscle cars now. It's my turn.
Now, looking behind you, because when you ducked a moment ago, you can see the line of antlers behind you. Oh, there's a few of them. I'm going to presume that those are real, correct?
Those are real, bro. That the deer hunting comes in. We're all deer hunters.
Bagwells are very well known for hunting. They love their hunting.
I begged to go hunting with Mr. Bagwell, Buff Daddy's daddy, if you will.
Big Steve.
I would say 10, 11, 13, 70, 1978 or 79.
Yeah.
And my mother would, I don't know now, they've got guns. And I was like, that's the whole idea, Mom, And she'd take over us, which was, hey, that's fine. And I never went. And they went, not every weekend, during deer season, which starts in Georgia, roughly the first week of September. On our farm here in Georgia, we hunt early September through roughly the end of December. Then we would move over to our farm in Alabama and hunt till the middle of February. Now I believe it's Mr. Bagwell's better at this than I am, but middle of February the 10th, roughly. And that's what we did every day, every week, maybe that's why I'm not married anymore, but hey, that's cool. But we, and it wasn't just let's go deer hunting. The deer that we've got probably here at this house, probably 20 some odd deer mounted from the game room, the bedrooms to the great room, the garage to where we're going to build another place is what Steve said, his brother. And but these are deer that you didn't just go shoot a deer. It was a nice rack, and a nice rack's always good. And these are the deer that you guys in Canada would say, whoa, wait a minute, y'all would be proud of. And back on I'm sorry. So I never went hunting, never went, this and that, Finally in 93, I called Big Steve. He's like, I said, hey, I'm going. He said, bring it. Don't sing it, bring it. I said, well, I don't have a gun.
Sing it, bring it. I love it.
Yes. And I go, first time, kill a buck. I'm hooked. And from that point on, now from 93, to now, almost 30 years later.
Yeah.
It's an everyday thing. Mark's brother Steve, we just talked the other day, and I can already tell we're getting into pre-hunting season now. With the middle of July upon us, that first week of September, we're shooting bows and arrows like every day, prepping. And it's, the both thing. We do rifle as well. Mark's really good with a rifle. He's a sharpshooter.
I was gonna ask you what kind of hunter Mark was. If he's a
a
strong
big hunter. Always went. I believe in 1981 or 82, he's 11 or 12 years old, shoots his first deer and falls out of the stand, probably 16, 20 feet in the air. Didn't hurt him at all. Judy wanted to kill whoever was there, yes, which I'm usually the first one that got it. So I had to go hide when we got back. But big hunter, it didn't matter. To this day, we've talked about as close as we are. I'm like, he knows he has a 24/7 invitation here to the properties where we're, either our farm or where we manage. The best, as far as managing properties, me learning growing up as far as how to do the properties correctly, Big Steve and Steve Jr. by far, period, the end, can put properties together and grow big deer. And that's where I learned, back in 93. How old was I back then? Gosh, not very old, but that's when I started. And Mark with us along the whole way. And then, of course, as when the season came around, it didn't matter what season deer season was, because Mark was always WCW, Thursday night, Friday night, Monday Night Nitro, taping Saturday. He's home on Monday or Tuesday, or get home Tuesday. He went laid in the bed, worked out and tan. That's all he did. That was his job. Well, I'd say, well, hey, bro, we need to go hunting. Well, I can't go this week. I can't. So he slacked off a little bit, but during the we had a farm in Eatonton back early 90s, probably through 2010. It was a leased piece from a gentleman. He came out there through that thicket all the time. And then I'd say over the past 10, 12 years, not quite as much, but hopefully this year, I think we're going to get him out and do some cooking and hunting and chasing or whatever we do. Whatever we do best, we'll do it.
I got to ask you, is growing up and into adulthood, are there any sports that Jerry Hood could take Marc Bagwell on? Could you beat him on in anything, do you think?
Wow, I beat him at pinball once. Does that count?
Pinball as a sport?
No.
That's probably in the Olympics ahead of baseball, unfortunately. But no, I don't think we classify that quite as a sport.
By far, basketball. Basketball, one-on-one, I'm the champion. Period, the end. His middle brother, John, is a hooper. He's, by far. And no, I'll tell you, no, I cannot. In case he's accidentally listening, no, I cannot beat John at basketball.
He will be listening at some point, Jerry. So yes, you will be accountable for all of this.
Yeah, Steve never was a basketball player. He could play, he could shoot, but he was a football player by far. Scholarship, college, full ride, the whole everything. He's 6'4", 230. Yes. And still to this day, he's 59 years old. He'll be 60 in January. And if he rolled in here today, he looks like he's, without the gray in his beard, he looks like he's about 35 years old from head to toe. Amazing. And solid you're a trainer, you train. There you go. The chosen one. Yes. I don't say the chosen lawyer because I don't need you yet. So I just say the chosen one. But
well, as long as you don't curse when you say my name, we'll go with chosen one. Sure.
Yeah, there you go. Never. But basketball for sure. He was good at whatever he picked up. It didn't matter if it was wiffle ball, ping pong, pinball, Monopoly, Atari. You know what Atari is?
Of course.
Okay. Nintendo, the champion. And he was a champion. And the Corvette guy, Larry Bagwell, Porky, same with him. His brother John, Mark's older brother John, same with pick it up. They all were. I mean, it didn't matter. It was baseball. It didn't, no matter what. I probably I'm not even going to touch on the baseball. He was a great hitter. He was defensively was great. But basketball by far would probably be my. Now he'll beg to differ, because in basketball with Mark, he sort of combined football with basketball. So you're subject to get tackled at any given time if you put a great move on him and dunked on him, or, it was good. But he was still good at basketball. Let's give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely. Now, as we're signing off this chapter, very, very important as we're ending here, that this is not the end, Jerry, but we're going to have many, many chapters to come. And what I wanted to relay to people was one of our conversations after you had watched an episode of The Chosen Life at the time, and Buff Marcus Alexander Bagwell had appeared. And I said to you, you've seen Buff on so many different podcasts and forums. Why me? Why this forum? What brought you over here to reach out to me specifically? And do you recall what you said?
The podcast originally, which I'm not a podcast guy. And I was actually scrolling through the internet, YouTube, looking for a 1996 Halloween Havoc match where his mom entered the ring to send to his brother. His brother wanted it. And here's the chosen lawyer that pops up. Something about Buff Bagwell. Then I said, well, wait a minute, what's this? That's a podcast. Oh, really? Oh, bro, no. Well, so I watched it. And from there was hooked. And I was like, the show, after seeing other podcasts after that, I always went back to you. Always went back to you because of the, you and Mark are friends. You cared. And it was always professional. It's clean. It's fun. We always have a good time. We say we're going to tape for an hour. We end up 5 hours. We never get enough time in, and you leading, and it just works. And so from that point on, I'm not a guy that's going to reach out to you. I would rather you reach out to me. Well, you didn't know who I was, but we reached out, I guess, almost together after I saw where everyone was commenting on the podcast, the particular podcast back then. I don't remember which one it was, but immediately it was almost within minutes, less than half a day, maybe. You responded back to me. And then from there it grew as you and I grew, and it grew. And then from here, once we knew that we were going to do the docuseries, The Real Life of Marc Bagwell, and then everybody, the producers and everybody came, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, you guys, as far as the script goes, you know what we do and what we have. But as far as what I have, what you've seen that we talk about, is almost like, why do I have to write this down when I know it's embedded here? I can go back over it 1,000 times. We lived it. I know it. It was almost like, I didn't give the eulogy at his mom's funeral, as you know, but I was a speaker. And I made a list of notes. That was her favorite thing. You got to make your notes. If you don't make notes, you ain't going to get it done. That was her favorite saying. And so I had my notes. And when I got up on stage, I was great at the funeral. I was, celebrating her life. Everyone was there. It was sad, but it was, we look back at the memories and what she did for everyone. And I'm happy. And my family members are saying, hey, everything good? You good? I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm ready. I'm ready. Until they announced my name. And at that point, I was done. I couldn't speak emotionally. The emotions took over. But back to the notes. When I was there, I was like, why do I have these notes? I wadded it up, threw it down. It's right here. I remember from a small child, and it was it. So same with Mark. I don't need notes. I mean, there's things that he tells me, and do you remember that time? And that's our favorite lunch. Do you remember that time? And I'm like, I don't know, bro. And then I'm the same way. Hey, do you remember the time that he was like, oh my God, yes. And where'd you find that, bro? How did you? And my memory, he's been through a lot, but my memory's pretty good. His dad's memory, and that's where he gets it. Some of it. His dad can remember the last dollar he spent in 1973 and what he spent it on. And that's just, he's got a good memory as well. He brings up a lot of stories, and it's, unreal that you can't make this up.
And that's where we have a lifetime of stories ahead for us. And I got to tell you, Jerry, Mark was many, many times on The Chosen Life, and you know about the docuseries we do with Steve Carsey, The Chosen Journey, talking about his baseball life. And you're a fan of that one as well. And we've talked about that. And it only made sense, you know, Mark and everything he's done and he's doing, that he needed a voice, the real Marc Bagwell, the real stories, cut out the headlines, take off the top hat. Let's really talk about it. And I'm grateful for it. I know the fans are grateful for it. Without you and your stories and your kinship with Mark, you know, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. We wouldn't be doing this series. It wouldn't exist. And you know what? Mark is very lucky to have you as a cousin, as a brother, and a lot of people loving and supporting him. And I'm really excited about where we're going to go with this because there's a lot of stories to tell.
Nothing but good things, bro. Good to good. Way better, more better. It's going to be better stories to come. Period. The end. You know, I've got. Whoo. How long is your program?
Well, you know what? It's every week, so it's gonna drop every Saturday. And so, Jerry, you keep that notepad by your bed. You keep the notes going, and sometimes it'll be me and you. Sometimes it'll be me, you, and Buff and Mark together, the three of us. And the stories are gonna fly. So, looking forward to it.
I can't wait.
So, brother, thank you very much. We'll see you back very soon, and very likely the next time we'll be seeing you, it's gonna be with Mark here as well.
Can't wait, bro.
All right. Have yourself a good evening. Thank you for the stories.
Absolutely.